In the heart of Los Angeles lies a bubbling cauldron of black mire, known as the La Brea tar pits. Here scientists have unearthed thousands of bones, entangled together, frozen in their final moments of agony. Among them, the most striking visuals are the faces armed with dagger-like fangs, the Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat. They didn't just lose to evolution, nor did they simply surrender to the climate. Fossil evidence reveals that their extinction was incredibly sudden. On the scale of Earth's 4.5 billion years, it happened in the blink of an eye. To this day, they remain one of prehistory's most puzzling disappearances. What force could wipe out a top predator, one that had dominated the planet for millions of years, in such a short span of time? Today, we travel back 10,000 years to reconstruct this silent trial. First, we must dismantle a long-standing myth. The saber-tooth is not a tiger. They belong to a distinct branch of the feline family tree, the Machairodontinae. If the modern tiger is a jack-of-all-trades, then the Smilodon was evolution's extreme special forces operator. Look at this skeleton. Their forelimbs are immensely stocky, with a bone density far exceeding that of a modern lion. This tells us they didn't rely on speed, they relied on absolute brute power. But of course, the most striking features are those upper canines, measuring over 20 centimeters. To accommodate these massive weapons, the Smilodon could gape its jaws a staggering 120 degrees. A modern lion manages only 65. This exaggerated structure wasn't for display, it was for lethal efficiency. Modern lions often kill by suffocation, a struggle that can drag on for 10 minutes. But the Smilodon was different. It was a surgical killer. Using those powered forelimbs to pin their victim to the earth, they drove their fangs precisely into the throat or vital blood vessels. A highly fatal attack, often delivering a clean, instant kill. It was a perfect mechanism, evolved specifically to take down the heavy tanks of the prehistoric world, the mammoth and the American bison. In the frozen depths of the Pleistocene Ice Age, the saber-tooth entered its golden age. At that time, the North American continent resembled the African savanna of today, but 10 times wilder. It teemed with giants. The Columbian mammoth, the ancient bison weighing over a ton, and the living tank known as the glyptodont. For the Smilodon, this was paradise. Food was never in short supply. The grasslands were essentially a buffet of moving flesh. This abundance allowed them to thrive for millions of years. Their dominion stretched across North America, down into South America, and even across parts of Eurasia. The fossil record tells us that for a very long time, their reign was absolute. No other creature could challenge them. But beneath this veneer of prosperity, a crisis was quietly taking root. The laws of evolution are unforgiving. The more perfectly you adapt to a specific world, the harder you fall when that world begins to change. For decades, the textbooks and the scientific consensus held a single verdict. Climate change killed the saber-tooth. The logic seems flawless. About 12,000 years ago, the Ice Age ended. Temperatures rose. The North American landscape underwent a radical transformation. The open grasslands retreated, replaced by dense forests and shrubland. Theoretically, the large herbivores dwindled, and the saber-tooth lost its open battlefield for ambushing. It sounds like an open and shut case, but recently modern science has exposed a massive loophole in this theory. Through dental microwear analysis, studying the microscopic scratches on the surface of fossilized teeth, paleontologists discovered a shocking truth. Even in the final days of the warming climate, the saber-tooth showed no signs of desperation. Their bones show no evidence of severe malnutrition. Their tooth wear proves they were still consuming high-quality prey. More importantly, the Smilodon had already survived several previous cycles of glacial and interglacial periods. So the rigorous conclusion is this: climate change indeed destabilized the ecosystem, making survival difficult, but it was likely not the sole executioner. The straw that broke the camel's back came from a different variable entirely. The true variable came from a brand new arrival. About 13,000 years ago, crossing the ice bridge of the Bering Strait, a group of upright primates stepped onto the North American continent, humans. When these early people, known as the Clovis culture, arrived, they brought more than just their presence. They brought an ecological storm. Many assume that humans hunted the saber-toothed to extinction directly. No, that is a Hollywood fantasy. Even for early humans, challenging a 300-kilogram angry cat was a suicide mission. Instead, humans waged a much more brutal war: competitive exclusion. Humans possessed fire, they possessed coordination, and they possessed lethal projectile weapons, the spear. They began to harvest the mammoths, bison, and ground sloths with terrifying efficiency. This high-intensity hunting caused the populations of large herbivores to plummet. Even worse, humans didn't just target adults. They often targeted the young, breaking the prey's reproductive cycle. For the Smilodon, this was catastrophic. Remember that skeleton? The saber-tooth had evolved specifically to wrestle giants. They were too heavy, and their fangs were too long to chase down small, agile animals like rabbits or antelope. Those massive daggers, once their greatest asset, became a liability. When the giants disappeared, the Smilodon found itself in a fatal trap, surrounded by fast food it couldn't catch. And the occasional catch wasn't enough to fuel its massive body. This is the heavy price of over-specialization. The saber-tooth wasn't murdered in battle. It was squeezed out of existence. Caught in the pincer movement of a shifting climate and human competition, they died not of wounds, but of hunger. We can visualize the tragic end: generation after generation, born into starvation. Mothers, too weak to hunt, forced to abandon their fading cubs. The very last Smilodon likely fell alone on a silent wilderness, watching as strange, two-legged hunters carried away the last of the prey. And then, about 10,000 years ago, that iconic roar vanished from the face of the earth. The story of the saber-tooth is not merely a record of extinction. It is a cautionary tale. In the grand game of evolution, over-specialization is a double-edged sword. Ultimate power often comes with ultimate fragility. When the world changes, the seemingly invincible titans are often the first to fall. Today, as we gaze upon those cold, fossilized fangs in a museum, we are looking at more than just history. Because in the wild right now, the saber-tooth's distant cousins, the tiger and the snow leopard, are facing the exact same destiny. This time, will humanity, armed with wisdom, continue to play the role of the reaper, or will we become the savior? There are countless more mysteries buried beneath the earth. If you want to uncover them with me, please subscribe. Let's explore the bones of history together. I'll see you in the next one.